In the plains of southwestern Russia lie the remains of a 40-foot structure from 25,000 years ago made of mammoth bones and tusks. It may have been a dwelling, it may have been a ritual site, it may have been something else. But guess what? There's a new study that may shed a bit of light on the matter. Hi there, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. I'm Michael Bott.
I'm Rupert Soskin.
And today we're looking at work being done to try to understand the extraordinary and maybe to modernise the obscene phenomenon of these structures made from a colossal number of mammoth bones that were built across what is now Ukraine and Western Russia 25,000 years or so ago. The fact of their existence raises many questions, and maybe today we'll get a little bit of an insight as to what was going on with these things. But before we do that, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. We're very close to the 100,000 subscriber mark. Thanks if you've already subscribed and helped us get there, but one more click just gets us a little bit closer. It'll be a wonderful milestone for us, so thanks. And, of course, you can support us directly by joining our Patreon community or contributing to our GÖBEKLI TEPE to STONEHENGE project. Links to both of those in the description below. That's all that out of the way. Housekeeping out of the way. Done. So, Rupert, Mr.
Well
Soskin,
said that, man. Yes.
This isn't the first time we've talked about houses made of mammoth.
No, indeed no. In fact, it's we talked about this very site 5 years ago.
Did I mention the name of it?
I don't think you did. No.
I don't think I did.
It's called Kostenki 11. And it's just other pronunciations are available. We talked about this 5 years ago when it had just been discovered or further excavated. What's made this one different is that so you've got this. There's actually over 70 of these sites that are throughout the region.
Which is a large region, let's face it. You know, we're talking about huge, Western Russian. You know, it's
huge, and actually seeming to have been constructed over quite a long period of time. The different sites around the place. But what's made this research particularly new is that they've actually gone to the mammoth bones themselves and they've done DNA sampling and testing of those bones to get more of a sense of how the people were interrelating with the animals, you know, how they were hunting them, what the animals were feeding on, just to get a better sense of the whole sort of environmental aspect of what these sites are about. Nevertheless, as you said right at the beginning, we have no idea what these sites were actually for, you know, whether they were residential or not, don't know. Unknowable at the moment, but
well, we can have some stabs at guessing at that. Now, I suppose the great thing about this study is it goes straight to the heart of the major question that I think we ask with our modern sensibilities about the scale of slaughter that must have, we're sort of leaped to the conclusions about the scale of slaughter that must have gone on in order for these houses to exist, bearing in mind that you have to qualify this by saying that the Kostenki site is, I think, the biggest of them all, by a considerable margin as well.
Yes.
Most of the other 70 sites are, smaller size, sort of hut.
Yeah, I think the smallest are about 3 meters across, something like that. Whereas this is 12-ish.
I have thoughts about that.
Huge.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, I mean, and hopefully I'll be putting up some pictures and sidebars, etc. To give you an idea of the scale of the excavated site that's going on. And it's a complex as well. There are several structures within this complex. So it's not just the one of them. But as I was saying, it goes straight to the heart of the question of where were were these slaughtered animals, or were these scavenged animals and all that kind of thing. So, that's about it. 25,000 years ago. Well, we'll get into that when I start reading from the script. Is there anything more that we need to sort of put in there to outline. Believe it, like Rupert says, we've covered this before. What date was it? 2000.
Well, we did it. It was April 2020.
April 2020. Such a long time.
I'm saying that it might actually have been February 2020.
Yeah,
but either way, it was 5 years ago anyway. So
yeah. It's buried in something there. And I can't remember, if there were particular insights that we had into it then that are pertinent now. But the thing is, shall I get on with reading what this?
Yes, definitely. Let's dig in, because we can start. If you'll forgive me, we can start picking the bones out of it as we go along. Yeah,
you are not forgiven. You knew exactly what we were doing there. I know that for a fact. So I'm reading from the ZME Science article. There'll be a link to that in the description.
Actually, it's worth saying here. We do often say it, but the reason that we're reporting to you using an article as opposed to the source paper is that the source papers are very often impenetrable, and we would be here for a few hours, and the article is a good synthesis of it. So, yeah.
I shall, I'll mention that in a little moment, I think. So ZME Science, link it down below, as there will there'll be a link to the original paper. Okay. So the article says the Kostenki 11 site, located near the Don River, just 300 kilometers from Moscow, is one of the most significant Upper Paleolithic sites in Europe. Upper Paleolithic is a very broad time period, about 50,000 years ago to 12,000 years ago, at which point the Northern European Mesolithic begins. If that's any help in terms of timescales, the mind just begins to boggle, doesn't it?
Just a little bit.
It contains several circular structures made from the bones of woolly mammoths, some of which are over 40 feet. That's 12 meters in diameter. That's the structures, not the mammoths.
Yes.
The site is not alone. These types of structures, more than 70 of which have been found thus far across Ukraine and Western Russia, have been the subject of speculation for decades. When was this Kostenki 11 site found? 2013.
Oh,
that's right.
It was a long time
2013.
Yeah.
But these sites have been under discussion from way before then. I think they were discovered. I can't put a date on it. Were they built from freshly hunted, as I said, were they built from freshly hunted mammoths, or were the bones scavenged from long dead carcasses? To answer this question, an international team of researchers turned to the bones themselves. Using radiocarbon dating, ancient DNA analysis, and stable isotope studies, they pieced together the story of the mammoths and the humans who used their remains. Scientists found the bones came from mammoths that died over a span of centuries. There's a relief, isn't it? And I have to say, that one sentence, how many words? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. That one sentence, you've read the paper, you've been through the paper.
Yes.
And that one sentence just belies the mass of the methodology that is in the paper, that goes through every tiniest detail of the isotopic analysis, the DNA analysis, everything. This is the thing about distilling that work down into a press release or something in a paper. It's just impossible. 80% of that paper has got to be dense methodology, so people can see how it was done, so it's replicable.
Yes, you must show your workings.
Yes, that's right. You'll show your workings out. But that's scientists found. It doesn't do justice. Anyway, some of the bones were from animals that had been dead for over 1,000 years before they were used in the construction of the circular structures. So. Like I say, that's a relief. Not so much mass slaughter going on. This means that humans were not just hunting mammoths, they were also scavenging bones from older carcasses. All mammoth bone circles are flanked by a series of large pits which may have been used to store or dump waste. For 3 years, the researchers had been excavating the site, employing flotation, a technique that involves water and sieves to separate ancient remains and artifacts from the soil. A total of 51 lower jaws and 64 individual mammoth skulls were used to construct the walls, according to the investigation carried out by a team of researchers led by Dr. Alexander Pryor from the University of Exeter, UK. So it's hard to imagine the scale. And here's the thing. It's, these kinds of sites have been known about for some time, but really nobody's come up with a definitive imagery to represent what they looked like. I don't think that seems to be out there.
They've done a reconstruction of one that makes it look rather like a tent.
Yeah,
but that
must be one of the smaller ones.
It is, but it is just a guess. It was just a best guess, and there is no evidence really to support that. It was just, how else is this going to be done?
Yeah. But otherwise, it looks like people really haven't dared to begin to imagine, to visualize, because it really is hard to how you build up a structure of these of bones without some kind of mortar or whatever you could be using to bind them together and make sure that they didn't fall into a into the heap of bones that they are now.
Yes, I think it's very difficult to imagine, because you've got to bear in mind that we're talking about, in this particular instance, we're talking about 25,000 years ago. These kinds of sites were made over, I think the oldest known is 48,000 years old, is it? Something like that?
It's at least 40.
Huge
not only
length
that,
of time.
It's a site called Moldova 1, which is
well remembered.
And that is attributed to Neanderthals as well, believe it or not.
You see that there is just opens another huge area of discussion, doesn't it?
Sorry, I mentioned it.
But if we're saying that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens were making the same structures, I mean, we know that we were interbreeding with Neanderthals, but that a shared culture there, a shared cultural way of doing something, that's quite significant in itself. I just find it really intriguing that this same style of structure was being made over such a vast length of time. And it does seem that they were using scavenged bones, not a lot of the time, but certainly, it must be appreciable. There's one site in Siberia, one of these structures, where one of the bones there was 24,000 years older than any other mammoth bone dated across the region.
Oh my Lord!
At 24,000 years older, and that's incorporated into the site. So it's like someone has come across this. I don't know, fossilized. It wouldn't have been fossilized in that length of time, but
frozen.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, because people are still digging, well preserved.
Glacial maximum.
Well, exactly. I was going to say that we haven't actually mentioned the climate yet. We'll do in a second, so maybe save talking about it till when we get there. But yes, painting the whole picture, that's extraordinary. Okay.
It is.
Anyway, in addition to the mammoth bones, the researchers were able to find evidence of charcoal and burnt bones, stone tool fragments, and soft plant tissue that hint at the diet consumed during those times. The charcoal suggests that fires were started inside the circular structure, providing comfort in the harsh Ice Age nights. And that's the first time it's been mentioned. It's hugely important. Climate modelling indicates that around the time, excuse me, around the time the structure was erected, conditions may have been at their worst, with average temperatures around minus 20 degrees Celsius or even lower.
Chilly.
A bit. I don't know if anybody's ever been in minus 20.
I've been in minus 20.
Yeah, so have I, up Norway, up the top there. In the
and it's
Arctic
actually
Circle.
surprising how, if it's not windy, it's really, it's just not a problem at all, is it? You just don't want a windy day when it feels like your skin's dropping off. So.
Well, generally the air stays quite dry, so it doesn't have quite the same chill factor. Is that correct? You know, my small experience of it.
Yeah. It's amazing if you get. Do you know what? Let's not.
Let's not.
That's a rabbit hole.
But it's very important to understand that context may be for interpreting what these huts and structures were all about. I'm just hypothesizing there. Have you got an idea in your head? What's your favourite view of what these structures were for, what they represent?
Do you know, I think that we need to consider the climate a lot more significantly in this, because if you've got absolutely frozen solid ground, frost to whatever depth that the cold must have reached, that how are you going to create warmth to live with? And I think it's distinctly possible that they were creating a layer of bone over which they could have placed whatever, skins, mammoth hides, whatever, but just actually using the bone to raise it away from the frozen ground and actually give just a depth of greater temperature. That's just an idea, but the thing is that the bones are spread so liberally across the circle. It is like it's a floor, if you like.
It wouldn't be the first thing I would make a floor out of, mind you. But there you go.
No, but then we don't tend to look at ground as something that we don't want to be on. It's only a thought, but when you look at the plans of the excavations, it doesn't in any circumstance, as far as I've seen of the different excavations there have been, I don't get the impression from any of them that these were bone walls, if you like, that had collapsed inwards. It's a layer of bone, and they may well have used tusks as supporting, arches for doors or walls or whatever, maybe, don't know. And in fact, the reconstruction, I'm sorry, senior moment, I can't remember where it is exactly, but
a visual reconstruction, you mean?
Yeah, where they've actually used... I
think you're talking about one that's mentioned, it's in the Kunsthistorische Museum. No, not the Kunsthistorische, the Natural History Museum in Vienna.
Oh no, there is one in the region where they've actually constructed the museum around the actual site itself.
Oh, that's at Kostenki.
That is a Kostenki.
Yeah.
But the small one that they've reconstructed, they've actually used the tusks as support tent poles.
Yeah, I think I've got a picture of that.
Description.
But
apart from that, it's guesswork. We don't know.
Yeah. Do you know what I think fits the bill?
What's that?
I think they're Paleolithic bothies.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Because I think these people were still pretty mobile. These are not, although it's been suggested in some of the literature, that, hang about, hunter-gatherers do these sites mean that they were sedentary or semi-sedentary? I'm thinking not so fast. They're probably normally, under normal circumstances, climate, weather, etc. allowing, they were probably, settling down and rooting up sticks and moving about. But because we're at the margins here, blooming ice age, we're at the margins of existence. And so, where weather can change extremely quickly. And having permanent structures, like everybody knows, I don't know if everybody knows what a bothy is, but in Scotland, Northern England, Wales, outward bound places, out on moors where you're a long way from civilization and habitation. Usually brick built, or abandoned cottages or things like that, workers' cottages. Given over to what are called bothies, and they're there for refuge for walkers and hikers and things to take refuge in if they get caught in bad weather, or
always make sure you've left a box of matches.
That's right, because they don't have any services, they don't have electricity or anything like that in them. They are just free shelters that anybody can use. And having a network of, Paleolithic bothies out there makes a kind of sense where survival.
It does.
Because it doesn't work for me that they're, represent settlements, permanent settlements.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there.
Given the amount of work that's put into them, I suppose that's where one's brain goes automatically. Why put that much effort? Well, this is just about survival, not necessarily about having somewhere to live. So, that's my favoured thing. But, it's out there. And, of course, there is the old ritual thing. There's always the possibility of ritual. There's always the possibility of ritual.
Yes, there is.
It's got nothing in it at the moment except a few old plectrums. Shall I carry on? There's a bit more. Yes, the bones themselves don't show signs of butchery. However, in the case of game of this size, the hunters probably removed the bulk of the meat, leaving small chunks to rot on the bone.
That's an interesting one, really, because not really, because the curious thing there is that there is nothing in the article that says anything like that. In the article, in the original paper, they mention that they have checked for things like butchery and cut marks, and they have not said. I think because it just was irrelevant for the purposes of this, but it has not said anywhere in the paper whether they found any cut marks or butchery marks or not. So for this article to say that the bones hadn't been butchered at all, I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. Yeah, I think that's probably.
Well, obviously, if the majority of them were scavenged, then that would probably be the case. But there isn't enough to go on there to speculate. Yeah. The fact that the bones were collected over centuries suggests that suggests that the circular structures were not built in a single event, but were instead the result of long-term repeated use. That fits the bothy theory. This means the area was constantly habitable, although not maybe year-round. The conventional picture of hunter-gatherer groups in constant motion, looking for new opportunities to forage and hunt in new territories, is becoming increasingly outdated. Yeah, in some areas, certainly in the Mesolithic, we get later and in different climes, but I think it may be fashionable to look that way, but you can't sort of apply it to, blank. It's always good to ask the question, not saying otherwise, but... I expect you need to be light on your feet actually, in this particular environment and in this particular ecology, that you belong to. So while these people were surely on the move, they likely operated around important landmarks that served as bases or ceremonial gathering places, especially during astronomical events like equinoxes and the solstices. That's just speculation. Maybe not. Yeah. As the frozen plains of Russia continued to yield their secrets, the mammoth bones of Kostenki 11 stand as a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of our ancient ancestors. In a world of ice and snow, they found a way to survive and to leave their mark on the landscape for millennia to come. Yeah. Hats off. We wouldn't stand a chance.
I'll make you an ice cave.
Thank you. All right, I wouldn't stand a chance. Put it that way, shall we? Along with many others, I hasten. Yes, I guess. So that's it. That's where we are. I don't think there's anything more to be gleaned from the actual article. That's what they said. I mean, the good news is that there's all these mammoth bones, and we're talking about a heck of a lot of them, were mostly, if not entirely, scavenged. Although, of course, they were hunting.
Well, I think one of the really interesting things here is that so they dated the bones and tusks, and they found that that in this particular site, that two of the bones were roughly 1,300 years older than all the others.
Wow.
And so just two. So you've got the vast bulk, whatever percentage, 99% of the bones in this structure are all from a similar-ish dates, bearing in mind that you've got the latitude of carbon dating, that, you've got kind of century either way. So these bones could have been collated, for want of a better word, over a couple of centuries, but two of the bones were approximately 1,300 years older than all the rest. Now, they did think originally that this was that they were probably brought from an older, a deeper level of the site, where this is, bearing in mind how many thousands of years these places might have been in existence.
Of course, we haven't taken
so that
that
maybe
into account
these have been reused from an older site. And the reason that they decided that this is not likely is that there is another site, the one I mentioned earlier in Siberia, where there are some bones placed in a similar way, that they're actually forming the shape of the outer circle. That where they're placed in that is the same. So these you've got it's almost as if they've been deliberately placed in the outer circle. They haven't been reused there. They've just been brought in and deliberately placed there as part of the outer circle. Now, personally, I think that that's an interpretation. I don't say, I can't see how that says that they're not reused from a deeper layer, just because there's a commonality with somewhere, where they've also got these in the outer circle. But it is an interesting. See, it made me wonder. Again, it's unknowable, but it made me wonder if we've always had, as a species, if we've always had this connection with the ancestors, that even if it's ancestral mammoth bones, to actually incorporate a couple of long dead animals, if you like, to bring apart, into the maybe, don't know, because it's always, in each case, it's just been one or two bones that have been so much older than all the others. I find that quite intriguing. Yeah. But again, unknowable. What do you do?
Talking about the bones, though, there's been a bonus result from the study, and that's an insight into what the mammoths themselves were eating.
That's true. And the difference between male and female mammoth behaviour. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed this out, but the article says by analysing stable isotopes in the bones, the researchers were able to determine what the animals ate. Surprisingly, they found no significant differences between the diets of males and females. In modern elephants, males and females often have different foraging habits, with males tending to roam farther and eat a wider variety of plants. The lack of such differences in mammoths suggests that their social structures and behaviour may have been quite different from that of their modern relatives. That's it. Bonus.
I've got to be honest, I found that quite funny in that going back to 25,000 years ago, I'm not sure that they would have had that vast, option of different things to eat in those latitudes. Modern elephants down in Africa, there's a lot of different things to eat. So I just I thought that was a.
Yeah. You make a good point. Maybe you should contribute to the paper.
Yeah, but I think it's an important point that they missed there. I think.
Yeah. It's all right for us coming after the event, isn't it?
Of course.
Johnny come lately, he's always got the wise words. Hey, I think that's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and hope you enjoyed that, found it a little bit enlightening. Like I said at the beginning, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. Have a look at our Patreon page, and yeah, the GÖBEKLI TEPE to Stonehenge project. Yeah, stuff's happening there. I won't dwell on it now. Please do have a look down below in the description. Find out more about what's happening with that and how you can help.
Busy boys we are. Busy boys.
Make it happen. Busy. Yeah, keep us busy. That's the name of the game. All right. Thanks again, folks. Yeah. See you next time.
Take care.
Okay. All right. See, who knew we could talk for half an hour on about 25,000-year-old mammoth. Houses, things.
Excuse me, I've got a real frog in my throat.